ready to go when you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm going to call this meeting of the Boston Metropolitan Planning Organization. Let me try that again. The Boston Region Metropolitan Planning Organization Administration and Finance Committee to order. I'm going to now read the virtual guidelines. All participants will join the meeting with a muted microphone. Please rename yourself and include your first name, last name, and affiliation. Please do not mute and unmute yourself. That will be done by staff. To participate in the discussion, please select the raised hand function. You can find this by clicking on either the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raised hand button at the bottom, or the reactions button in the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. If you are on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact Mr. Jonathan Church, AICP, via the chat box at jchurch@ctps.org or 857-702-3709. I'm now going to read the accessibility statement. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1, Level AA standards and revised Section 508 standards. Require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in the accommodation, please contact Jonathan Church, MPO staff at jchurch@ctps.org or 857-702-3709. Thank you. My name is Brian Kane. I am the Executive Director of the MBTA Advisory Board, a MPO member entity, and I am Chair of the Administration and Finance Committee. Let me welcome you all here. I'm going to do a roll call of members present. Jonathan, do you want to do that, or do you think I should do that?
You can do that, Mr. Chair.
All right. Let me find my spreadsheet, which I don't seem to have in front of me. But
I can do it then, Mr. Chair.
I want you to do it.
Brian Kane.
Present.
Derek Cravat.
Here for Mass Dot Planning.
Eric, MAPC.
Good afternoon, Eric Barassa here with MAPC.
Regional Transportation Advisory Council.
Leonard here, thank you.
And City of Framingham. That calls the roll, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have a quorum, and thank you all for being here. I appreciate that. And let me also welcome all of the MPO staff members attending from CTPS. We will move on to agenda item 2, which is public comment. If any member of the public would like to make comments, you can use the raised hand function, and we would be delighted to hear your comment. You can also submit written comments to staff by emailing Jonathan Church at jchurch@ctps.org if you are able. Jonathan, do we have anybody using the raise hand function?
Not at the moment, Mr. Chair.
All right, I don't see anybody, and if folks do choose to, we can certainly take them as we come to agenda items. We're moving on to action item 3, which is a summary of the May 5th, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion and a second to approve this meeting summary?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by MAPC. Is there a second?
I will second that. Derek Cravat.
Moved by Derek. Great. Matt, do you want to call that roll again for me?
I will call the roll, Mr. So that would be MBTA Advisory Board, Brian Kane.
Yes.
Derek Cravat.
Yes.
Eric Barassa.
Yes.
Leonard Diggins.
Yes.
And that calls the roll, Mr. Chair.
The meeting summary is approved. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Derek and Eric and Len. Okay, now we get on to agenda item 4, which is a discussion of the MPO elections process. So folks might remember, the last time we met, we decided that for the first part of the operations plan discussion, we would try to tackle the elections process, mostly because it is the most pressing issue in terms of time. We do have an election that we have to administer. So several of us have been talking about this recently. There are some questions, clarifying questions that we've come up with for the committee to consider. Jonathan, do we have those written down? Those questions, the clarifying questions?
We can put up the document. Logan, can you? Put the
Mr.
doc-
I can put them up right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Logan. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm a visual kind of person myself. I'll also read the questions. So there's two questions that we thought we would try to discuss today with respect to MPO elections. The first one is, as we move back to in-person meetings and events, should the municipal elections continue to be fully by electronic ballot, or should the MPO have an in-person voting component reestablished at the MAPC's fall council meetings? And this, of course, assumes that the MAPC's fall council meetings will take place in person. And then a second sort of perennial question, should the subregions elect their municipal members? Currently, a municipality must obtain 5 nominations, which can be from any municipality in the region, including a self-nomination. And a municipality cannot nominate more than 1 municipality per open seat. So 2 sort of questions there for the committee's consumption and consideration. When we move to have our elections in the fall, should there be an in-person component? And secondly, as the subregions elect municipal members, should they be more at large? And if so, if they just continue to be within the subregion, is 5 nominations too many? And if so, what is a good number? So those are your questions to ruminate on. Eric, I'm gonna ask you to open up this discussion, since I know you are one who thinks about this very deeply and considerate.
Yeah, no, thank you, Brian. And then just as background, so the whole memo kind of is a great summary, and thank you, Logan, for summarizing. Brian and I sent him a number of things, and he summarized it in that memo, which kind of goes through the election procedures. And this first question, I would be really interested in what others think about this. The MAPC right now, our council meetings, for the past 2 years plus have been all virtual. And I think our goal is to get back to some type of an in-person council meeting. For those of you that have never been to an MAPC council meeting, we're required to hold a couple of these a year. And it's basically, we get all of our council members, so the ones that are from our cities and towns, the gubernatorial appointees, we get them all, the agency appointees, we get them all together. We do an annual one at the end of May, and that's where we actually elect the formal council seats and the formal executive committee members, which is really like our board at MAPC. We do a fall council meeting at the end of October. It's historically like the last Wednesday in October. That's when we've done the municipal elections. We actually moved. We used to, many years ago, we did the municipal elections at that annual meeting in May, and it was very confusing. People would show up, I'm here for the election, and there was the MAPC council seats, and there was the MPO. So we moved everything to the fall council meeting to just have them separate. And then we do a winter council meeting sometime in like February. And so I don't know, we haven't decided yet at MAPC whether they're all going to go back to in person or whether they're all going to be completely virtual, or maybe the annual meeting is in person, but the fall and the winter one will be virtual. Just like the MPO, we with MPO meetings, we've received a lot of positive feedback that people like the ease of attending a big virtual meeting. but historically, we would have kind of a keynote speaker, like in the past, we've had, the Secretary of Transportation or other secretaries or people, Congress people. I think once we had the governor. And so anyways, my point here is, would love to get people's input on this. So assuming that if we did go back to fully in person, what do folks think of that, about having an in-person component? And then on the second question, about the nominations and the subregions, my opinion is I think we should run the subregional elections similar to how we've done it historically, so that it's an actual ballot election and not like a caucus meeting or something like that. I think it should be a formal process where the municipality seeks nominations and then is actually on the ballot, and there's a vote that takes place, even though it's just the municipalities in the subregion that would be voting. I think 5 nominations is high. In fact, in some of the subregions, if you got 5 nominations, you would like win because there's only like 9 municipalities or something, so and so I think I would propose a lower number, like 2 or 3 nominations, with one of those being like a self-nomination, to seek, and then have your name on the ballot, and then that would go before the municipalities in the subregion. So those are my thoughts, but very interested in people's thoughts on this as well. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Eric. As I said, very much considered and well thought out. Do you mind lowering your hand, Eric? Thanks. Go ahead, Len.
Yeah, so I agree with Eric. I think 5 is high, and so yeah, whether that number is 3, or lower, it's probably the question, and with respect to the elections, at the meetings, I recall when I went to those before I was involved in the advisory council, it was really a matter of how do I time my arrival, so that I'm not having to be there during the elections, and so I would say, to the extent that the elections could be divorced me from that meeting when it comes to public participation. Because those big events, like you said, they have keynote speakers, and those topics were interesting. So that might appeal more to the public. And then when it comes to whether you do things in person or virtual, whatever gives you the most attendance, I would say is what you target. So that's it. Thank you.
Sorry, Len, can I just follow up on what you said? You're suggesting more people would show up if it were in person? I just didn't quite follow.
Oh no, well, I didn't say.
Okay,
I just said target whichever one you think is going to give you more attendance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Sure. Thanks for asking.
Derek, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So I still feel a little bit like a newcomer, so I just have a clarifying question on the second one, about electing municipal members. Is that, so I noticed the survey had a potential change of only votes coming from within the subregion. Was that actually put into effect, that members are voted based on subregional
Correct.
votes? Okay.
Yeah, the MPO took that action back in the fall. We did, that was like the one
Right.
action that the group took out of that survey.
Yep. Okay. I thought so. But that makes sense. And then, yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Eric, that 5 does seem a little high, and agree with 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then going back to what Len was saying, Len, I think no matter what, we would run, we always have done an absentee ballot process. And in fact, the majority of municipalities vote via that absentee ballot process. Out of like the 50 or 60 votes that we get from municipalities, I would say 2/3 of those are by absentee ballot. And we'll continue to do that. Now we're doing it with an electronic absentee ballot, which is 100 times easier than
Yeah.
having to get this paper thing,
Yeah.
mail it, et cetera. And so it's so much better and easier. We'll continue to do that, and we'll verify those to make sure,
Right.
that the right people are voting. But we'll continue to do that. I think the question is, is it just an electronic thing and then we get them and then we email out who's winning? Or I kind of like the idea of having it like formally then kind of announced at like a big in-person event.
I see.
And then we can, and if there are any mayors who just want to show up, or other chief executive officials want to show up and vote, then they can do that.
Yeah,
I got your point.
I
Okay.
think there's pretty broad consensus there to do a hybrid option, Eric. I mean, you're going to do the absentee ballots anyway. And if the fall council meeting happens in person, then, yeah, I think we should have an ability to collect ballots and votes. I mean, as far as you're concerned, as far as your staff and administering that, is that a huge burden on you to do kind of both?
No, we can have paper ballots on hand, and we'll staff, people will be there regardless, and we can do that. That's not a problem at all.
All right. Well, I mean, in that case, I would suggest that the sense of the committee is to have both an in-person and an electronic option. I mean, unless there's any objection to that, Len and Derek, that seems to be what I've heard. And I think we're also hearing pretty broad consensus to within the subregions that 5's too many. I suggested 3 as a good number because it requires a municipality to nominate themselves and get at least 2 more. 2 is also fine with me. That's themselves and one other community. I don't feel too strongly either way on 2 or 3. But I think, 3 is the most I would go with, and 2 I could live with. So, Len and Derek and Eric, do you have, does anybody feel very strongly about 2 or 3? I think we can agree 1 is too few and 5 is too many.
I think it comes back, sorry, I always have this like motion sensor in my office that's on the other side of the room. So I do jumping jacks. I guess the question is, do we want, what I anticipate happening is that we will, I think there will probably be some kind of conversation among the subregions, which has already historically happened. They talk to themselves about, are you interested in running? Okay, you're interested, I won't run, or you're looking to run again. Okay. I think that we will probably continue to see that happen and not see a ton of competitive seats. I know this is something, the feds raise. I think if we wanted to see more competitive seats, then having the nominations be a little lower, like 1. I think it's good to like have to get nominated in case of someone that people, I think it's good for at least, it's just like you make a motion, it needs to have a second. Like you can, you nominate yourself and then somebody has to kind of second that. So we wanted to potentially encourage more municipalities to run, then having that kind of lower bar could be the rationale for that.
I guess my thinking is that imagine if there weren't electronic voting and we were all in person, traditionally an individual would nominate someone for a seat and then a second person would second that nomination.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually considered sort of inappropriate for a person taking a seat to nominate or second themselves. That's why I suggest 3. But again, I'm not, this is not a hill I really want to die on. So yes, I think we should definitely lower it from 5. I'm comfortable with 2 or 3, 3 being, I guess, my preference, but again, not too strongly felt. So I think how I feel about subregions, and that's a different question that we'll tackle some other time. So
the one thing here though is I really would like to get guidance today, because we actually need to send out the materials like the beginning of August, in a few weeks. And we're not obviously gonna have like this whole document done by then to get it approved. I feel like if, I guess Tegan, you know, from a process standpoint, I feel like if I can get guidance from this committee about that, I feel like we can do this year.
agree.
And if for some reason the full MPO disagrees, at some point we can change it.
I agree. So I guess Derek and Len, the question to you folks is 2 or 3, or any other suggestions?
So I would say 2, well, so you're saying a person doesn't nominate themselves, right? If they don't nominate themselves, then 2 is sufficient. If they do, then 3, including them. So
We're suggesting they can nominate themselves.
if they can nominate themselves, see, the problem is that I guess if you allow them to nominate themselves, then it makes it harder to have the lower number. Because then you have to like write in some additional text in order to say, well, if you nominate yourself, then you need 2 more. If you don't nominate yourself, then you need just 2. So if we rule out the ability to nominate yourself, then it's just 2.
Yeah, I think like from a process standpoint, it was like the way we had it, like it was like the municipality was the chief executive official was like I'm nominating to run for the seat, like they like were submitting to the MPO like a statement of candidacy, like I'm doing this and I've been supported by these municipalities kind of thing, as opposed to having like another municipality be like, I'm nominating that, like I'm nominating Somerville, like it was like the mayor was like nominating themselves kind of. So that's why we did it like that.
That makes sense.
Right.
Right, because the municipality should support their own candidacy, right? Like it puts them in an awkward spot if they don't, right? So I agree that I think it's almost more, it's maybe self-nomination is synonymous with like just them agreeing to.
Yeah, it's accepting
Run,
the
right.
nomination.
Right.
So okay, what I'm hearing is 3.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Right.
I think
Yeah, I
let's start with 3 and we can always drop it down to 2 next year if we need to. And then we'll go negative.
Oh, Brian, you read my mind. I was just thinking that joke's not going to work, but it worked.
I'd like the power to nominate people. Can I do that?
The advisory board just creates a slate, Eric. You should consider it. It's much easier that way. All right, cool. So I think the sense of us, of this committee anyway, is hybrid and 3. So you feel good, Eric? Does that give you enough to work with?
I do. And does everyone agree that we can do that this year, or is there a feeling that this needs to be like vetted again with a full board or anything like that?
I think we can move forward. I don't think there'll be any objections,
Okay. So
especially since we're gonna write it into the operations plan eventually anyway. Right?
okay, Megan has her hand raised.
But just a
Oh,
suggestion,
go ahead,
sorry,
Donna.
Len, to jump in. It could be an update given in a committee update. Just that this is something that we were moving forward with, just to inform the board. Just so you don't feel like you're not, letting them know at all.
I think anytime you ask me, should you ask someone else? Probably you should ask someone else. I hear where you're coming from, Brian, but yeah, I agree with Hagan on that one. Thank you.
Because we have a meeting tomorrow, right? Yeah. So Brian, do you want to make that?
Yeah.
And then maybe even say, and if anybody has strong opposition, to this, speak now. And again, when we do the operations plan, that's another opportunity. We can change it, again.
Yep. No, I think I'll definitely do that tomorrow. And I just think we do need to move this forward. So yeah, I think we all agree. So great. Thank you, Eric. That was great.
Thank you.
We got through the elections piece. At the very least, we are making progress. Hooray. Okay, let's move on to item 5, unless anybody else wants to continue this discussion on election process. Tegan, please go ahead.
Sorry, can I just ask a process question from our perspective as staff, which is that, if there are no more questions or comments, can we consider you generally in support of the way that write-up currently stands? And we'll just work to sort of edit and formalize it with the clarification from those 2 questions that were discussed today.
I
Yes.
feel fine with that.
Okay, great. Just want to confirm that. And then what we'll do is we'll be able to reshare it with this committee, in its next iteration of being written up. And then if there's additional comments, we can discuss them then.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think we're making progress. Next item is member items. Are there any member items? I don't see anybody.
I don't have like a particular thing, but I was just wondering, Brian, do we want to create like for the next couple of meetings, like here, like we're gonna, we'll try to tackle these 3, like 2 or 3 items, like kind of create a little like an agenda of meetings, like, and what items we want to tackle.
So yes, which you read my mind, Eric.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to talk about in item 6. So let's move to that. So we don't have anything scheduled as of today, but I did want to talk about that exact topic, Eric. So Jonathan and Tegan and staff have put together a nice matrix of things in the MOU with sort of dates, due dates, targets, et cetera. And they've also grouped them by kind of theme, which I thought was very helpful. So there's themes around the tip, around governance, et cetera. So I guess what I would suggest we do is let's let staff finish that matrix. And again, Tegan and Jonathan, I'm asking for your guidance and help here about sort of timelines. And then we'll take the items that sort of come, I guess, next in terms of what's due in the calendar or what is sort of most difficult. And, I will defer to your experience on this one as to what we do first. But does that sound doable? Tegan, Jonathan, Gina, et cetera?
Yeah, I think we need a little bit of time to get to that next step, because what we have in the matrix that we shared with you was a list of those items and then what the timing said in the MOU, which is often vaguer than what we actually do in practice. For example, like annually. But in many cases, we have a practice as to when annually we do some of those things. So we probably want to spend some time to add that additional kind of column or clarification on when they are currently done. And then we can prioritize what's coming next. And then also look at what we have kind of the current staff capacity to focus in on. And so we can get back to you. I don't know I don't have a deadline in mind on that, Brian, but we can get back to you pretty soon and then set up the next meeting.
That seems like a good approach to me, especially, and I would encourage you, if there is a traditional timeline that's not necessarily spelled out in the MOU, to just note that. Precedent is sometimes sufficient. So I guess, scheduling anything in the summer is always a challenge. We can either do a doodle poll, Eric and Len, Derek, and Dennis, or we can try to do something in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today is the 20th, 21st. I think do we have an MPO meeting on the 21st?
We do have an MPO meeting on the 21st. Yeah.
And then something after that too. So I think we're visioning something after that,
Okay. Well, I guess the
envision-
question, do you want to do something before at 9 a.m. on the 21st?
No.
I think we may need to reserve that 9 a.m. time for a
Okay.
possible UPWP committee meeting.
Okay.
But I think that's somewhat in flux.
That's
What
true. I
about-
forgot about that. Yeah, that's true. We do have to do UPWT then. Yeah.
Given the intensity of the deadlines in July, may I ask that we work with you behind the scenes to get ready for a meeting in August, but not, plan to hold the next meeting until the next month, but we'll do more, we'll have an opportunity to do a bit more background work first in preparation for that meeting. Does that sound reasonable, Jonathan, as well, based on any other deadlines you might be thinking
That
of?
seems very reasonable to me. Does that seem reasonable to everyone else here?
Yes. Are we going to have an August 4th MPO meeting?
Yes.
That was my question.
We have to for tip amendment endorsement.
So maybe, I mean, it could be a short meeting, maybe, maybe we could do it on the 4th. I'm gonna be gone a little bit in July. I'll be back at the beginning of August, and then gone again sort of at the end of August.
Okay. Why don't we circle August 4th now as a target?
Okay.
And hope that gives everybody enough time to get materials together and what we need.
Okay.
So our deadline for this is it October when they start doing the next recertification?
May I answer?
Please.
The next recertification is already underway.
Oh.
And so we are not on the timeline that would get this completed by the time of the next certification review. What we ended up deciding to do based on the evolution of this was to make sure we kicked it off and made some progress before the next certification review is complete. So you certainly may hear about that, that we didn't get to it. And I
Yep.
work on how we respond to that, but we will do what we can, but we won't be finished.
Okay, that's fine.
I think as long as we are making progress,
Right.
I think they will recognize that. They will, they'll comment on it, but as long as we're meeting, we're making progress, we're kicking through things, I think they'll be okay with that.
Yeah, well, it may end up being true that they'll say, well, you won't be certified until you produce the plan. In which case, that may be our real hard deadline.
I'd be even surprised if they did that. I think we'd have to be very, very behind on producing something, but.
Yeah, we're gonna get our wrists slapped, but we are making good progress, and I think that's the most important thing. And I'd rather get a good plan done than a hurried bad one. So I'm okay with this timeline.
I'm also free on August 11th, if those are times at work, like if people want to stick to Thursdays.
There's a MBTA board meeting on the 11th.
Okay.
So let's pencil in the 4th as a target. And, if we can't for some reason, there's other times we could try. But Jonathan, and does that work for you? August 4th?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, that works fine for me.
Okay. And then we'll do a prep before that. I'll let you schedule that. We'll figure that out behind the scenes.
Will do.
But hopefully in August, we'll get into a good cadence that we can continue through September into October. Okay,
Okay.
great. So that was member items, and also next meeting. I don't think there's anything else on the agenda. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up before we say farewell? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone. Great job.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.